Bibliosophie. So anyway.
Oh no. We have an issue with the switch signal. We actually can't go.
I'm feeling big summer feelings. I just finished filming a favorite books of 2024 so far video, which will have been posted by the time this vlog is posted. Hi, hello, my name is Sophie. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, wow, it's so tiring to film, especially relatively long wrap-up videos, list videos. I get really in my head about it. Anyway, you're welcome. Don't say I never did anything nice for you. So what am I reading right now? Well, I started Malina earlier this week. This is my book club pick for July. I'm actually going to probably post some notes tomorrow, my first reading notes for really only the first like small chunk of pages. I only have read about 40 pages so far. So it's relatively slow because it's very thick stuff, and especially really makes me want to take a lot of notes. I think that's just further aggravated by the fact that I decided to do a book club, and so I have appointed myself as a note taker. So I'm a little slow in reading it because I do a lot of writing simultaneously and a lot of thinking about references, etc., which is not a bad problem to have, actually. I partially picked this book because I knew that it would have a lot of richness inherent to it that I could dive into like this. Rose trémière in French. Having coffee was a mistake. I don't feel very good. Do, 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 do. Oh, hi. I haven't talked to camera in a while. I'm in London. I've been here since Friday midday, and it's now Monday midday. So what have I been doing? Not vlogging, certainly not talking at least, not reading very much, but you know, tourism, hanging about, a little bit of socializing. I met up yesterday with Rasheen for a long coffee, and that was really lovely to see her in the flesh. But mostly just a whole lot of walking around, sometimes feeling a bit out of sorts. It is unsurprisingly cold and gray, which tends to happen, can happen in a London summer. I don't have that many clothes because I'm going to France tomorrow, actually, and I just didn't want to pack very much. So I'm relatively limited in what I have, and I'm always marginally unprepared. I kind of knew I was getting into this predicament, but I have been doing a tiny bit of reading in the form of Rachel Cusk's Parade. I've finished the first section of 4, I believe. This is a multi-perspective-ish sort of book. We are following, as of now, 3 different artists, from what I reckon, identified as first initial or initial G, capital G. One seems to be, I assume, a white man, kind of older artist with a wife. Another is a late 19th century woman named G. And the third is a black man from, I think, New York, also identified as G, and the other major kind of point of view is Cusk herself, or at least a kind of Cuskian first-person narrator. So we also are switching from third person to first person. At first, there's not much connective tissue between those perspectives, and then as the section goes on, the reasoning for that it kind of becomes a little clearer. The narrative I becomes kind of a staging platform. I'm really liking it so far, unsurprisingly because it's Cusk, but also because of the subject matter. I'm getting a lot of shades of Second Place, which I think is my favorite Cusk. I have not read that much Cusk, but I've read several things from throughout her career, and I think there's a slightly different voice in the latter Cusk, the Cusk of Second Place, and from what I can tell also of Parade. Tell me if you agree with that, but there's a different uncanniness and maybe kind of a more mature distance that I see. For instance, the subject matter of Outline and Second Place and Parade are not dissimilar. We're dealing a lot with artists and making, but there's a more self-identified center in Outline. It feels more overtly autofictional, whereas even though it's deeply autofictional in part of Parade, maybe the most of anything of hers I've read recently, at least since Outline, there's also a distancing thing that she does in her omniscient third person. So I'm not sure, I'm still kind of figuring out how these most recent two books feel a little bit different in the voice style. What is this about? I mean, these artists and kind of Cusk herself, it is about, or maybe, I is attacked in the street by a woman. I is a woman herself, and she's attacked by a woman, and that really kind of messes with her physically, obviously, but also psychologically and emotionally to be attacked seemingly at random. She describes that woman as kind of her dark twin, and so she's really coiling around the why of that attack and what it means, and there's a lot of the boundaries of body in that, but then we also see the boundaries of bodies and selves in the works and in the surrounding people of these G artists. We so far have seen most of the older, I think, English G man and his wife, and a lot of kind of her perspective of what it means to deal with life with him, his life of creation, and her life of kind of subsuming herself to him. She is she becomes the subject matter of his latter paintings, and that deeply reminded me of Second Place. If you've read that, when the relationship that main female protagonist has with the older male artist who's living in her second place, there's also a shade of that, and when he paints her, the kind of turning point that creates as well. So I definitely saw some shades of that. Yeah, a lot of investigation of subjectivity, objectivity. 19th century Lady G becomes a kind of a fulcrum point of that. A lot of exploring of marginality, marginalizing others through art potentially, or through actions, being marginalized and making art as somebody who is marginalized. So it's so far working very well for me. I don't know how quickly I'm going to read it because, again, as I said, I'm not doing a lot of reading. I have not picked up Malina in several days. I'll probably read it or maybe Parade or nothing, I don't know, on the train tomorrow. But it's been hard to really get reading. I think Parade and Malina are actually pretty well suited to one another. In Malina, we're following an unnamed narrator, I-ish, and her kind of obsessive relationship to two men, Ivan and Malina, in her life. Much to think about in that text, which is why I picked it. I think I've already said that in a previous video segment. I'll have to look it over. I posted my first round of reading notes at the end of last week. I'm going to try to do a little bit more reading and post reading notes number 2 at the end of this week as well. It's good to have the quote obligation of the book club to keep me reading and keep me reading deeply. So I'm having a good time with those things. Now I need to practice, and then I'm going to go to the Tate. Toi, quand tu prépares le café, totalement aléatoire aussi. So, now greetings from Bretagne, from my little seaside village. And if you are not new to this channel, to a surrounding that will look familiar to you, I continue not to read very much. And I've been kind of stressed about it, kind of guilt-ridden and worried about that, and that strikes me as distinctly silly. I have not wanted to sit down to talk to camera because also I just haven't really had the time. I've been running around doing kind of touristic things, but also because I've been dreading the fact that I didn't know what to say, I haven't been reading, and that's so silly. So I'm sitting back down, I am saying hello, I am going to talk to you a little bit about the tiny little bits of reading I've been doing, and I'm going to wrap up this vlog, and that's it. It's okay. You still love me as much as you ever did. It's okay. I'm talking to myself more than me, I think, at this point. What have I progressed on? I'm continuing to be very, very slow. I'm being called. J'arrive! And we're back. I've definitely lost some momentum, but as I was saying, I am being quite slow in reading Bachmann. This is, well, because I just haven't been reading anything, of course, but also because I've been reading so meticulously. I mentioned this maybe twice before already. It's because I'm taking so many notes and I feel a responsibility to parse things out, not just for myself, but also for anybody who's following along in book club. So that is a wonderful discipline, but it's also definitely slowing me down. I don't think it's been daunting. I think it's just been slow. We'll see. What has been daunting is the kind of self-imposed obligation that I've given myself to regularly publish notes. I think that's quite good. It's a good discipline, but again, I'm feeling this sort of weird stress and guilt about not having put out anything yet for this week, and I mean, come on. that's just how it's going to be. I would love to know if you are reading along, if you are part of the July book club pick, and if you've started the book and what you think. It's definitely appealing to me. It's very much my type of book, very kind of tortured and heady. I have only read half of Parade. It's such a short book, it's only about 200 pages, but since I've not been reading it either. I listened actually to the second section as an audiobook because I got my Libby loan exactly at the same time, basically, as I was starting to read it by chance. I've read some comments online saying to definitely read a physical copy or an ebook rather than listen to it because it's too confusing to listen to. I disagree. I think, you know, it has multiple perspectives, but it's not, to me, confusing. You just have to let yourself go in the knowledge that there's not a through narration. And if you're a very linear plot sort of person, then sure, I guess it's frustrating, but I am not at all finding the audiobook confusing. I've started the third section, The Diver, back to reading an ebook, but I will probably kind of go back and forth, and I don't know, the non-linear, maybe I'm just too broken at this point, but the non-linear, multi-perspective, non-narrative through line truly doesn't bother me. The through lines that I am liking the most so far have to do with kind of capturing and freedom, freedom of the artist, and then capturing something in a painting or in a photograph. That comes up a lot in the second section. It strikes me that there is obscenity in objectification and in ownership in that section. If you have read it, that particular G's husband, G in that section, is a woman artist whose husband takes photos of their child, and there is a kind of obscene, what's it called? Violation in so-called innocent photos, in the fixity, I think, of them that she sees. And I think it is an obscenity that comes from an ownership of the subject. And that's sort of a through line also in the work, the life and the work of other artists in this kind of sprawling narrative of narratives. Also very much life and death. There's a really interesting reference back to the attack that the Rachel Cusk, first-person narrator of the first section, suffered. There's a kind of midwife of death tale that is related in the second section, and the midwife bludgeons people who are ready to die, and that calls back to the particular attack that Cusk and I suffered in the first section, and that was a violation, but in the second section it is sort of a requested violence. So I'm liking the way that the different sections are independent and also evolving from one another. I'm not going to finish the book before I finish out this vlog, so maybe I'll talk about it in the future. There are sections that are too long for me, as always. It depends. Some things work better than others, but so far, quite enjoying it. Also really enjoying in the second section, or was enjoying in the second section, the landscape, the relationship to place and kind of physical nature. That was really interesting. Okay, that's all. Those are my kind of disjunct, non-narrative thoughts. While I'm sat here in the much beloved late afternoon sun, I want to mention a few videos that have also talked about Rachel Cusk and specifically Parade recently. I mentioned previously Nathan's vlog of reading Parade. I also want to mention Cass's from a few weeks ago, and just this afternoon, a few hours ago, Renee put out a reading vlog of Parade, which I've only watched the first few minutes of, but I'm sure will be interesting. So I'm gonna send you over to those videos to get more on Parade, since I wasn't able to finish the book in this vlog.